Welcome to the Sleeping Barber Podcast.
And action.
Action. That was like simultaneously, by the way.
Welcome, V. Welcome
How
to
are
the
you?
Post-Pod with the Sleeping Barber. I'm good, man.
Sponsored by. We don't have any sponsors.
Quadical. That's my company.
Quadical has sponsored by
Quadical Fractional Initiative, where all of your marketing dreams come true.
There you go. I'm sold, man.
I'm still
sold.
working on the tag. What do you think? Just as a working piece.
It rolls off the tongue.
Right? Yeah, let's talk about Andrew.
What he was. Well, I know we've had Orlando and John Evans on, and I don't know. It just feels like they have a really good crew over there because our conversation with Andrew was just. I really enjoyed it personally.
Yeah. Yeah, he's. I love his attitude about a lot of this. Like, obviously,
Me
wicked
too.
smart dude. Kind of like, yeah, just very frank and fresh, and yeah, I love his attitude about it all.
Sorry, I'm just thinking some of the things he said. He's like, "Well, Barton Sharp already hates me." So,
Yeah,
what's
I
it up
think.
for you?
Well, for
Go ahead,
me, I
sorry.
mean, the one thing that was like mind blowing in a way was, I think we talk about it with performance marketing, but when you talked, I think you asked him the question about all the permutations and combinations that come with AI based creative.
Hmm.
And then you're applying, let's say you're looking for clicks, you're optimizing for clicks, you're optimizing for conversions of some kind. No matter what, you're still optimizing your creative, even in all of its parts, to some kind of attribution model, which isn't necessarily designed to get you the reach to the light and non-buyers that you need. So, for as helpful as it is, it's still more the same, which to me was one of those like aha moments. I'm like, yeah, I hadn't thought about it as like the creative impact that is happening on marketing departments.
Yeah. No, that's a great point. I really enjoyed the conversation that we went down around like awarding effective versus creativity.
Yeah.
And I know like there's two different schools. Like Work does the effectiveness awards, or I'm butchering it. I don't remember what it's actually called. But then you have con lines, and I feel like every time I say it, I'm getting judged. Not by you.
Oh, no, by me too. By me too. I'm very judgy.
I just feel like every time, like preemptively, you're like, do I pretend I'm French and I call it con?
Yeah.
Or is it canes? Anyway, sorry. But it's like, it's interesting that we've almost separated them and saying like one's effective and one's like just awarding creative, where I think maybe when we're looking to make things really tangible for us in practicality, how do we look at them as one and the same? The creative execution that you are applying can also be an effective way of, growing affinity, mental availability, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that's where we could probably do a better job as marketers and internally to kind of stitch those things together and not make them two different things, but make them one instead. And this is where Andrew really continues, and I wouldn't expect anything less coming from a pre-testing platform, really reiterating the importance of pre-testing and making sure that at least notionally you're headed in the right direction. So I think there's a lot of value in that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, I think the con events, yes, like
I'm
con. There was another thing that he brought up that was really interesting. There's that study that was done by a bunch. It was like an academic study, and I think Byron Sharp was one of the authors. But he had talked about how the ability of a creative panel to judge creative effectiveness is about the same as a coin flip.
Oh, right. Yeah. 50-50.
Unless there's a couple caveats there where they've found that if you have had some analytics experience, and then I think, if I'm not mistaken, he talked about it also having another layer that improves the accuracy is having had industry specific experience. So that you've seen ads like that, you kind of maybe have had some experience knowing what's been working before or what's not working. So that context, and to be able to thin slice the sort of data and looking at things that way is helpful. But generally speaking, super interesting finding, like you're awarding people for creative and not always, and sometimes creative celebration is just great for the sake of creative celebration.
I'm
But
with
I
you.
think a lot of times, I think you mentioned this too, like it's great for the team morale and all that kind of stuff. But still, at the end of the day, we're still having to answer to businesses that are there to make a revenue, profit. And so those things kind of matter a little bit.
Not too much. We're still the coloring department, so no one takes us seriously, anyways. But the just on that, that one comment, it wasn't too long ago where through the CMA, the Calgary Marketing Association, we all got together and we celebrated the incredible creatives that came out of a con, and the fact that as marketers, we do get inspired by that. So that's why I want to be careful that I'm saying that it's not important. I think it's very important because I think that's where we can continuously look to push those boundaries of the art of the possible and making sure that we're constantly looking at what can be done, but we just cannot lose sight of the effectiveness side, because at the end of the day, we're held to, objectives within an organization. We're held to drive both short-term and long-term goals. And we have to be careful on how we trend that line a little bit.
Yeah. Side note, totally distract. Con, how do you say con? When you look it up in Google, it says K-A-N. Sounds like K-A-N. Can?
Like con.
Now I got to listen to it. Hold on. Let's hear.
This episode is brought to you.
There you go.
Can. So it's like the can. Kick the can.
Like, why would you spell it K-A-N, though? Like, why not just put the C-A-N, like can? Like a can of Coke.
I mean, I'm with you, buddy. Friends, we just say can.
Oh, there you go.
We'll see what Connor says, because maybe he picked up an accent when he's ever since he's been
probably
there,
picked up a French accent to his Irish version of the accent
that he already had.
We're on the yacht thing, and it's going to be a whole other word.
I can't wait to talk to him next and just kind of razz him a little bit. But anyways, the other thing that I loved, and I love your take on this, when he was talking about like the three areas for effective advertisers to focus on, like the base or the foundation, I think, as he alluded to it. So there was like, number one is business strategy, and you had some great questions around this. But one was business strategy, the second was the brand strategy, and then the third was the creative platform. Yeah. And all these done kind of almost sequentially. Like, you need that business strategy first. Then you need to understand what is your overarching brand strategy. Then how do you bring to life your brand strategy through a creative platform? So I thought that was a really interesting way of compartmentalizing it and saying, no. And I feel like this tracks fairly well when you think about it. Even back to some of the conversation with Roger Martin that we've had, like at the end of you need to make sure that you have a really strong business strategy that can help actually inform a lot of your marketing tactics or your go-to-market strategy as well.
For sure. Well, and we talked about that study from Paul Dyson around the advertising profitability and how creative was number 2, brand size number 1, creative number 2, and then there's a whole bunch of media metrics that are second, third, fourth, fifth, all the way down to 10. And so, but creative, like, that only matters if you get the creative right. And so that's where, like, it's not just a matter of getting a AI generated image or Google mixing up a whole bunch of logos and background images to spit out something. Like, I think that's a really key point that you brought up, because having the right strategy really is itself is the differentiator. It's not, the creative is an outcome of the clarity of the strategy, not necessarily that you just happened on a great strategy and because you made this great piece of creative.
I'm so with you. And this is where, again, when I think about business strategy, and specifically because I've been spending more and more time with it, but like the playing to win framework. Yeah. I think that lends itself really well to set up a brand strategy around that. And I think that's where, how do you tie marketing to business? This is how you do it, right? And if you don't have a cohesive business strategy, then it's hard then you're just throwing spaghetti against the wall and seeing what sticks. And that's where sometimes you're struggling to find traction, or you don't have enough research to inform some of your go-to-market strategies. But it all comes down to, what is your business strategy? And I think that's often overlooked.
I agree. I think that's a good point. And it really, I mean, we're talking about creative, but it doesn't have to be creative. It can be any idea. right? Like
Anything.
if you have, anyone can have an idea, anyone can have a piece of creative, but unless it's connected and rooted in a business insight and then a business objective, like you could just be throwing blindly darts at a board and not knowing if you're going to hit it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a couple other notes that I had too. There's retain for commercial gain. I thought was great.
That was my next one too. I love that line.
I thought that was really good. And then the other one was related to the Avis DDB contract that he talked about. He's posted that a few times. They talk about trusting your agency, approve or disapprove, not trying to improve. And then the idea around pre-testing, I think is really smart. Like if you're going to hire a company to be your creative agency, like let them do their job, right? Like, yeah. And a lot of times I don't know that I've been a part of like agency turnovers. I'm not sure that the agencies that we've turned over are always that bad. Sometimes they're just in a bad situation. Good companies in a bad situation, and they can't win.
Or we're just bad clients.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I'm with you. Because sometimes, again, our discipline can be so subjective for many people, where if you don't like something, it's very easy to be like, nah, I don't like
Scapegoat.
it. Go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
When in fact that could have maybe landed the brief better than anyone. But sometimes it's unfortunate, but that does happen more often than not.
Yeah.
I don't remember whose quote this was. I know you brought it up. You may have brought it up, or maybe it was Andrew, but like, shit that arrives at the speed of light is still shit.
Oh yeah, he brought that up. Yeah. I've seen that quote before. I love that quote.
That is really good.
Yeah.
That is really good. Because even though if we're moving with pace, if it's still bad, it doesn't matter how quickly you try to do it, it's still going to be bad. Totally. So that's where, again, root yourself in these foundational, this base, the foundation of a business strategy, of your brand strategy, your creative platform.
Yeah.
To really execute against that. Then you can execute with pace when you have those really solidified. Without them, like, I think that's where it becomes increasingly difficult.
And it's funny because you're saying at pace, and I agree. But then the process that we're talking about, if you think about writing a brief, understanding the brief, showing the brief, communicating the brief, having the agency understand the brief, having them come back with some kind of concept, going through an approval process, running the gauntlet of the approvals, then moving into production, then moving into the media plan and distribution, or, some of that happens simultaneously, I know, but I'm just saying it in that order. It's not something that happens instantaneously. And so there's an idea there where, the short-term need to deliver something today almost forces your hand to not do creative brand campaigns because it takes too long. You know what I mean? Like, you can just put up a discount today and boom, Bob's your uncle.
Yep.
Look at that. We did all this. Look at all the ROAS we got.
Exactly.
Amazing. Yeah. I got a data-driven attribution model that's showing me that we're unbelievably effective
really good
when we're driving sales. But yeah, you're not necessarily doing this. It's doing the right things versus doing the, anything really quickly. Difference between effectiveness and efficiency, I guess.
And at the end of the day, like, this brings up his point. It was 3/4 of B2B marketing have, what's that number?
A 1-star rating, or like ineffective ads, essentially.
In the long term, it was ineffective in the long term because we get down back again to like that short term. How do we drive impact today?
Yeah,
you think about the creative tradition in B2B, very product oriented, making sure that you're showing it in use, getting people excited. But again, that's finite. That's in the moment right now. And again, like, I want to be careful here, is because obviously it drives results. It doesn't mean it doesn't drive results. But in absence of a long-term strategy for both the brand itself, I think that's where you can become somewhat, I know I often use the term myopic, but I'm trying not to overuse that. But the reality is, like, that can only take you so far. And you have to make sure you're thinking about the bigger picture. And I know he brought up Did you bring up characters?
No, I was thinking about
That was another
chat with Ella.
I'm just
My
blending
mind
things.
was drifting there too.
My goodness.
Yeah.
Long day.
Yeah. But you're right. I think there's lots of things to consider, especially when it comes to creative. Like, it's just one of those things that we really need to spend more time thinking about, and we also need to give it the time for it to work, and to be as effective as it can be, because it's a complementary tool. I get the need for short-term thinking and short-term tactics, but I also get the need for defending the future of the brand and improving price sensitivities and things like that, right? That matters. Improving the mental availability of products as a first choice thing for a buying situation of X, and it's a whole thing. It doesn't happen overnight.
I just thought of something where sometimes you could be very intentional. Say you're a startup and you're just moving at a pace to get bought up or go public or whatever. So your vision is very short term, or it's very 3 to 5 years out, right?
Mm-hmm.
If that's just part of your business strategy, then I think it's okay that you're not building for the long term. You're just like, you're building for a moment in time. But as long as you identify, as again, going back to what your business strategy is, then that helps inform your overarching marketing side. You don't want to be talking out of both sides of your mouth. And that's where I think it's easier for longer standing brands or organizations that have been in the space to really lean heavier on, say, the brand building exercises, just because they've already created that space for themselves. But if you want to be intentional and say, no, we're in this game for the next 5 years, you know what? That's okay. Yeah. You do you. Go short term.
Totally.
But just be honest with yourself as well.
Totally. You know what you could also say?
I don't know.
You should go chase profitability.
Everybody loves a little profit in your pockets.
No, like, I was thinking about a segue to end this, but also, like, that's a thing. Like, revenue and profit are two different things. And so I think that's a good, way to link those two ideas together about short-term creative or long-term creative. They do different things, and we talked to Dale about this, but they're different asset classes. Like, what was going to work for one isn't necessarily the same that's going to work for the other.
And we know startups, it's less about the idea of profitability, it's showing about the opportunity. So it's more revenue side. Doesn't matter at what cost, but if we see that we can drive revenue, for instance, it's easier to get more funding, secure that funding, get bought out, et cetera, et cetera. So again, I think this all plays into it.
Yeah. Super interesting. Anyways, Andrew's a great guest. Super fun.
Great conversation.
Yeah.
Thanks. If you've made it this far, Andrew, thank you for spending the time with us. We really appreciate your insights, and we'll look to have you back on.
That'd be great. Okay, V, until next time.
Go chase profitability, my friend.
I will. Take it easy. Ciao.
Ciao.